Welcome to the Codecast podcast. Real-world insights for your daily medical coding and billing processes. And now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Codecast podcast today. Hello to all of our 25,000 plus listeners, and we are growing on YouTube and all platforms, including iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, streaming, Google Podcasts, and TuneIn. So how's everyone today? Hope you had a great day and a great weekend. Of course, I'm going to update you on my Pittsburgh Steelers because I know you're interested. Of course you are. But they continue to win. We've won 5 in a row, so I'm pretty happy today. And yay, we're number 1 in the AFC North since everyone else is losing. So I want to shout out to the Saints, New Orleans Saints, for beating the Bengals. Thank you very much. Sorry to my Ohio listeners. Of course, we'd always love to have you come over to the Steel City side of things. So I'm a bit under the weather today. I'm fighting a sore throat, but hopefully I'll get through the podcast without too much of an issue. Luckily, I have the start-stop button. So with the weather changing right now, and both my husband and daughter are teachers, so they bring home who knows what, and every once in a while I do catch it. But luckily it's rare and only really when the weather changes. But when you speak for a living and you're just like, oh no, is this it? So you definitely just get a little bit scared when something affects you, when it affects your job. So I may be coming in and out of our discussion. So our topic today is a little bit of a departure, and it's called Coders Are Not the Coding Police. How's that for a Codecast podcast topic? And I hope you laugh at that as I did when I created this segment. In my training and auditing travels lately, I've kind of noticed a trend that seems to be about policing physicians on their documentation and coding instead of really assisting them to get better. And I wanted to just have a discussion about that. So hopefully everyone can kind of take a breath, refocus, and think, okay, wait, is this really what we do? Or are we on the right track? Sometimes it's just a good idea to take inventory on how you proceed when you're talking to a physician. And that's really what I want to have a discussion about today. So it's not going to be a long podcast today. I just wanted to, especially since it's Thanksgiving week, we want to give you a chance to get home, start cooking, and you're going to be seeing family, but just a little bit while you're in your car that you can kind of think about. But first, today, the Codecast podcast is brought to you by Medical Management Institute. Sign up now for the Medicare fourth quarter updates for physician fee schedules, coding, billing, and reimbursement information. I'll be presenting a webinar on this topic for them Tuesday, December 11th, 2018, and you can register at mmiclasses.com. And also Healthcare Executive. Healthcare Executives Network is the fastest growing community for healthcare executives and their trusted partners, healthcareexecutivesnetwork.org. Okay, so we are not the coding police. What do I actually mean by that? Well, I really want practices to consider taking a preventative measures approach rather than waiting to sound the alarm when it comes to focusing on provider education and their documentation. Sometimes coders and auditors are taught to focus provider education around coding concerns or problems, but are these really the primary conversations a coder or auditor should have with a physician? Too often we're seen as the coding police, and I just believe that to be true. I don't know about you, but that's not how I want my clients or my clinicians to view me or my work. So conversations on documentation should be initiated before they become problems. And coders and internal auditors should be proactive in assisting clinicians with coding. So you're making time with a provider to review new coding opportunities. This can go a long way in developing not only a supportive and mutually respectful relationship with a clinician, but it can open a door for you as an expert in the field. And as coders and auditors, it's really our responsibility to review coding trends, keep current on guidelines and coding changes, and communicate not only the changes, but opportunities they represent as well. So this communication really should be done regularly, and it should be done in person whenever possible. Many coders communicate with their providers through emails or a quick, pass-by question, but this really doesn't assist a clinician in seeing the bigger coding picture or really allow a coder or even an internal auditor to better understand a provider's point of view. And one of the things as an external auditor and also a Medicare auditor that I've noticed is I like to just have the physician talk to me. I just want to hear their perspective, what they're thinking, and really just put it on the table. That's what I say. Just put it on the table, and I'll let you know if you're accurate or not accurate, or if your interpretation of how Medicare looks at it or other third-party payers is appropriate. But we not only want to have a conversation, but we want to make sure that we give the provider a voice. They're the ones that are responsible, bottom line. And so us talking at them is not always going to be in their best interest or yours as well. I'm not advocating that we never discuss coding or concerns with our clinicians, but be open-minded. We certainly have a duty and an obligation to provide feedback on areas of concern. What I am advocating is that we change the conversation to allow consideration of another point of view. So sometimes coders think in absolutes. Either it is or it isn't. And that's really not a way to approach a provider's documentation. Yes, there are absolutes we must consider, like the presence of signatures or legible documentation. But when it comes to clinical information and impressions, the clinician is the expert on this. And so we have to take their expertise and help them to incorporate it in the record and how they meet their documentation guidelines. And really take the time to develop a relationship with your providers and allow them to see you as the coding expert you are by providing them with meaningful, proactive coding advice, also highlighting opportunities as well as improvements. So your relationship building should start from day one. Consider developing an onboarding process for your providers. It could include time with the intended coder and auditor, letting the clinician know who their go-to person is. That sets you off as the expert right away. And do your homework prior to onboarding to determine your comfort and skill level in the new clinician's specialty area of practice. This also allows you to discuss needed resources or education in advance of the clinician's arrival. You want to also have your information and ducks in a row. So you're not coming off as just an administrative end of it, but you have to have a little bit of that clinical piece. And before the clinician begins seeing patients, schedule time for the clinician and coder and auditor to really discuss the clinic's needs and the clinician's and provider's expectation and processes, and review the types of service they are providing, and maybe not how they can do it better, but how they can show more of what we call a best practices. At this time, provide the clinician access to local and national coverage determinations. Show them the guidelines. Don't keep that a secret. It can go a long way in really creating some mutually respectful and beneficial relationship. And then from there, you can establish follow-up education and resources based on that provider's needs. And then hold some follow-up meetings to review documentation, and then provide insight into that documentation, give feedback, ask questions. And then really, I would do that within the first 30 days after you've reviewed coding guidelines and had this conversation. And it really helps to spend time with your physician so that you have a mutual understanding. And I can't stress enough about really listening to your physician. In one of our podcasts that I did not too long ago, it was called The Art of the Physician Query. And it's really how to present information in a knowledgeable, professional, and accurate way, but get your physicians on board to listen to you, to really want to give you feedback and want to talk to you as an expert. And to do that, you really have to understand that there's an opportunity here with you and your physician and building that relationship. I tell you all the time about my big producer and content provider, not just in my Codecast, but a lot of the things I do within my business, DeSassa & Johnson. And, it's interesting because when him and I really have these conversations about healthcare, and you wouldn't think that a rap artist, somebody who's a musician, would have, any understanding of healthcare, but just how he's really built his knowledge of understanding over the last few years with working with me and giving me a perspective in business, because he's so submerged in what the public wants, what patients want. And it's just a kind of a great conversation that we have about bouncing these ideas and how to really engage an audience. And that's what you're doing with your provider. When we talk about this, and I know it can be scary, he said something to me that kind of is sticking to me. He said, there's no such thing as failure, only opportunity. And because I said a lot of the staff are either intimidated by their physician or they're concerned that maybe they're not going to be well received. But, what is failure but an opportunity to improve? So when we focus on opportunity while addressing concerns surrounding coding and documentation with our clinicians, that's where you get that mutual respect. That's where it's developed. And this is an environment in which we can best offer value-based healthcare to patients. It starts with really the relationship with the physician has with the people around him or her, so that they can not only have quality documentation, but also when this is translated into claims and bills and coding and, improvements and all of that, and the patients are going to see it. It's really important to, again, cultivate those relationships and to do it by not being the coding police, as I mentioned before. So, you really want to avoid coming across as this, coding police person, and be clear when you're communicating with your provider. I can't stress that enough. Be clear, understand what, they want, what they're asking, and that'll really help you in the long run, because you want to not only be an expert, but you want them to continue to listen, and you also want to be their go-to person. That's one thing that, I see a lot of people in my travels, and one of the really nicest compliments I can ever get, and I really appreciate this from my clients, is after we've had a meeting or we've had a discussion or a training session, I have a lot of people that say, gosh, our doctors loved you, or how do I be you? Because they just really, really appreciated the information. Or I have a physician come up after the class and they'll say, thank you so much. I learned more this class than I ever have. And it's because I listen to them. And I also give a positive first before I hit them with the negative. You always want to bring your physicians in and let them know what they're doing right. Because if you only tell them what they're doing wrong, then it's a problem and they shut you out. They're not going to listen to you. So again, really building that relationship is going to be important. Okay, so this week's episode has also been brought to you by Medical Economics, Smarter Business, Better Patient Care, medicaleconomics.com for the business of medicine, digital magazine, and health IT. And I will have an article up in December on the new Medicare proposal and my thoughts on that. It might be a little bit of ranting, but you guys are used to me doing that. Our coding question today comes from a New York subscriber about what we call a bubble study echo. And so the question was, Terry, my cardiologist performed a bubble study with a full echocardiogram. Would I use a separate code for the bubble study and a separate code for the echo? So the answer is no. CPT does not offer specific codes to the bubble study. You would report a regular echocardiogram code, and there are a couple of possibilities. So if it's an echo with Doppler and color flow, then that's spectral Doppler and color flow, then you would have 93306. If the documentation does not support the spectral or color Doppler information, then it would be 93307 only. And then if it is a follow-up echo, it would be 93308. But remember what echoes are. They're high-frequency sound waves to create images of the heart. And then the cardiologist uses these images to evaluate the heart structure to see how well it's functioning. An electrocardiogram with a bubble study, okay, so they call it a bubble echo, and it takes forever, by the way. Send them to the hospital. It takes forever in the office. It's actually the same procedure as an echocardiogram, but it does provide a little bit of additional information. With a bubble echocardiogram, the healthcare provider places an IV in the patient's arm, and agitated saline with bubbles is injected into the vein. This enables the cardiologist to see if there's a tiny hole between the upper chambers of the heart, or what you've heard it called a PFO, patent foramen ovale, or an atrial septal defect, ASD. But there is not a separate code for it. So it's really just the echo code, which is unfortunate. Can you charge for the agitated saline with your HCPCS code? You can try, but I know more and more payers that just say it's incidental to the procedure. And you can't charge for the IV either, because that's going to be part of your echo procedure. So we just want to make sure that we're clear on that. And then lastly, I'd also like to thank Pete's Coffee of Laguna Niguel. Great seating, great coffee, and fun artwork that shows photos of our fair city here in Laguna Niguel. If you stop in December, you'll receive $1 off a specialty drink. So we appreciate them. So I want to give my personal insight this week, and hopefully during the Thanksgiving week holiday, I'm actually going to get a day off. I haven't had a day off in about 4 months. So, well, I shouldn't say that. I did have some time off in September when I went to speak at the APC convention in Hawaii. But it was a working trip. And then, so I did take a couple of days though, just not to work and to enjoy my family time. But still, I work all the time. So I need some time just to sit with maybe a glass of wine and sit on my deck, which I live on a golf course. And it's really pretty out there, or go down to the beach and just read my book. And so when I'm not teaching, training, auditing, designing waiting rooms, blogging, or podcasting, wait, when is that? I just realized when I make a list, it makes my head spin. But I do love to just get buried in a book. And my favorite go-to author is Lisa Scottolini. She's a lawyer out of Philadelphia, and her legal thrillers are just awesome. Not only suspenseful, but a lot of humor and just a plain fun, fast read that you never want to put the book down. So if you get a chance to pick up a book that's not for work, and I do recommend you make some time, it's such a great mind vacation. And it's away from TV and your cell phone and everything. And believe me, I am glued to my football. So during football season, I'm either watching it on TV, or occasionally I do get down to San Diego if the Steelers are playing down where I live. But it's crazy just to sit there in quiet and read a book. I just love that time, and I don't take it enough. But if you get a chance, try one of her books. It's really great. And something funny, I've been asked to do a book club podcast. So remember I said just how truly obsessed I am with podcasting because I really like it. So stay tuned for that. Somebody had asked me if I would do that, and I was looking to see if there was actually one. And I know podcasts have like these strange short stories and things like that, and some thrillers out there. But I was thinking, okay, that would be just so interesting to do it as a book club, and people that, listening to your podcast, you're all reading the same books, and then there's a conversation, and maybe we'll allow people to, to call in or whatever. But it's something I'm kicking around. I just think that would be so fun to do, and do it really early, either on a Saturday morning, call it Saturday Morning Coffee with Terry or something. And that could be fun. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully somebody will be interested in that. So next week, as I'm recording this, I am headed to Dallas, as I mentioned, to present a 2-day workshop on cardiology coding, and also to meet with a client out there in a hospital system where I'm a board member of. So should be a fun week of travel ahead. Wish me luck with my voice. I already can tell that I need to wrap this up because I'm not going to make it much longer. But everyone, make it a great week and make it a great day. And thank you for listening again to the Codecast podcast.
For more information on medical coding, billing, auditing, and compliance, including how to hire Terry, follow Terry on Twitter at TerryCoder1, or visit her website at www.terryfletcher.net. Podcast producer Joe Kuzma. Music producer Dassassin Music.